When your business makes money, that doesn't mean that's money for you to go and spend. If it's spending it on the business in smart ways, such as for more inventory, then that's great. Hey everyone, how's it going? My name's Jake. We're going to jump into part 3 of what I've done for work, the little mini series we decided to do. So this one is a bit of a crazy one. So this job offer was back in 2018. It was when cannabis had just legalized here in Canada, completely legal. And a friend reached out to me asking if I'd be interested in investing into this cannabis tech company. So thought about it, went down to see the lab. It was a gorgeous lab. They did tissue culture technology. This was the company here. Well, part of the company. It was one of their brands, so Mantis Buffered Nutrients. They produced a one part nutrient for growing cannabis, more so aimed at the home growers, since in Canada you were legally allowed to grow up to 4 plants. Anyways, I'll get into that in a minute. So, went down to the lab. It was beautiful. I met the CEO, sales team, everybody else, and I thought, wow, this is absolutely incredible. So, the catch was they were looking for investment. So, I decided, okay, I think this is something I want to do. It all kind of landed at the right time. I had just been diagnosed with malignant melanoma, so that's going to be another video as well. But just to kind of brief on it, it's a very serious form of skin cancer, and I had to have it cut out of my leg a couple of times. So we caught it early. 8 years later, I'm still kicking, and I was only 24 at the time. So when this opportunity came to me, it was just a couple months after that, and it was my first serious health scare. And I kind of thought to myself, wow, okay, I want to make a difference in my life. I want to do something. I feel like this is a good opportunity. Comes with a salary, so let's do it. Okay. So I end up investing into this company and I get to work. So I had no knowledge about cannabis or anything like that. And I kind of dive headfirst into it. It was an incredibly special place. It still is held near to my heart. It was one of the most fun jobs I've ever had, but it was so incredibly stressful. So I don't know how many of you know the cannabis framework and the legalities of it, but I had to become a well-versed pro in it. I probably read the regulations 20 times. Every time they would update it, you got to be on it. The unfortunate thing about trying to pioneer this space was it was the wild, wild west, and there were people that followed the rules, and then there were people that didn't follow the rules. We were one of those people that followed the rules, and it felt like we got completely punished for it. So, when I say that, it's because we would do things the right way, and we would essentially get caught behind people that were doing it the incorrect way, right? So, this was just incredibly challenging because it just felt like we were always behind the 8 ball and we could never get ahead. And it came down to a point of there were a few months in a row where I wouldn't get paid and I was struggling to make ends meet, but I believed in this company so much that I couldn't imagine leaving it, and I stuck it out till the bitter end. And I would definitely say it created this thick skin on me of you can throw a lot of shit at me and it's not going to get at me because what did I learn in that first video? Positivity. Positivity is the number one thing I use to get through it. Did I come out on the other side unscathed? Absolutely not. Did I make a shit ton of money? Absolutely not. I lost money for sure. But there were a ton of lessons to be learned from this one. So I'll go into the products a little bit. So first and foremost, our bread and butter. This one was great because it didn't need licensing. You didn't have to have any sort of the licenses that Health Canada offered. So Mantis buffered nutrients. It's a 1 part nutrient. It was aimed at the home grower. It had all the nutrients. It was buffered so it kept the pH levels in the soil at the optimal level for cannabis growth. So this was an incredible first of its kind product. When things got really tough, this is kind of what we relied on. This is what we sold the most of, and it was awesome. Like, people almost didn't believe it. We always said we were 5 years ahead of others. People just didn't believe it. A 1 part nutrient, that's a hoax. That's not real. And we actually ended up making little samples so people could get through a first grow to actually see that this indeed did work. So absolutely incredible product. When we started to have to cut people off the team because we couldn't afford to pay them, I learned how to make this product from scratch. And I was using autoclaves, master claves, all that fun stuff. But anyway, so our second claim to fame was tissue culture. So tissue culture in agriculture commodities is used when you want to bring in new starter material, let's say. So let's say tomatoes. You are opening up or you're opening up a new wing of your tomato farm with a different strain or cultivar of tomatoes. So you would bring in a fresh cut, or you could do it from seed. But let's say you want to make sure that you have the correct genetic phenotype of this tomato. You're probably going to bring in a cut. So a cutting is just a cutting off of the original tomato plant that will then create the exact same one, but just in a child form, but it will eventually grow. Anyways, I'm I'm getting off track here. So tissue culture are essentially these offcuts of the original mother, but they have been cleaned up. So they live their entire lives in these little vessels that have an agar solution at the bottom that helps them grow. Incredibly cool, because these cuts have never touched the outside world. They're sealed in this container. So when you bring this cut of plant into your operation or whatever, it does not pose a risk because there's no bacteria, no pests, none of that. So this is ideal for agriculture, because when you have hundreds of thousands of plants growing and you bring in the risk of contamination, that's a huge problem, because disease can wipe out your crop. Pests, they can carry different diseases like mosaic virus, which can then be devastating to your crops. It can reduce yields, blah, 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 right? So this was incredibly cool. Once again, people did not believe us. They did not believe that we had this technology. They thought it was fake. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I was doing it. I did it. And I grew these plants in these vessels. I'll put a little photo up for you guys to see what that looks like. And it was super cool. I felt like a scientist. We're working in these laminar flow hoods. We're using sterile tools, all this fun stuff. I remember I would sesh this for 8 to 10 hours at a time, and your shoulders would feel like they're going to fall off because you have to have your hands in there the entire time, and you can't take them out. Otherwise, you got to sterilize your hands again. So it was just fun. It was cool. I would play my rap music, and yeah, I don't know. It was just fun. So learning to do that. We also did, we were, okay, so we were one of the first companies that did legalized seed. So we were very focused on starter material. We never actually grew the flower for sale. It was all about the starter material. So we had these plants. We did seed. So we couldn't do feminized seed. Feminized seed, that's going to create only the female, which then creates the bud, because you had to spray your plants with colloidal silver. Doing that was against Health Canada's regulations. So we didn't do feminized seed, but there were other companies that did. So that was how we knew that some people were not following the rules. Some people were, and we were one of them following the rules, and the other people most likely weren't, because the only other way that you can get feminized seed off of a plant is if you trick a female into creating male pollen buds, which other than colloidal silver, is not healthy for the plant, and you do it by stressing the plant. A lot of the time, this is going to create really crappy feminized seed, so we didn't want to do that. But that's what other companies were doing, that's what other companies were doing, and whatever. But anyway, so we created the brand Herbaceous, okay? And it all came from our in-house breeding projects that we were doing, and once again, this was very cool. I got to help out a lot on this, and yeah, so I think we released about 5 or 6 different seed lines, and all in-house, like I said. Very cool stuff. I learned how to propagate plants, I learned how to grow plants, I learned how to care for these plants, right? So it was incredibly cool. Um, you know, I think the biggest takeaway from this venture was just how awful it is trying to raise money, especially in a space that came from the black market and is now trying to be legalized. Everybody thinks that they can get a little bit more out of you. Um, you know what? It is what it is, though. You got to learn the hard way. You got to trust your gut. If you don't believe in this person, then just say no. There's so many times we're in a tight spot and we're being offered $1 or $2 million, but they're just trying to take everything. And the CEO did say no to a lot of people, and at the end of the day, it didn't end up working out. And you know what? I think it's okay. I think it got to a point where we could barely put food on the table to feed our families, and I think money was such a big factor. But it was a good lesson to learn, because moving forward into my businesses, there's so many things that I know not to do, and to stay away from. And I know how to bootstrap. And when your business makes money, that doesn't mean that's money for you to go and spend. If it's spending it on the business in smart ways, such as for more inventory, then that's great. But you shouldn't be using that income as a means to pay yourself. If you cannot survive without being paid from your business, then you shouldn't be just doing that business. You should have another side job, something that pays the bills. That's currently what I'm doing. I'll talk more about that in a couple of videos. But yeah, that when you're in business, that money should just be rolling over into more business. You need to trust your gut too. If there's a business deal on the table and your gut is telling you otherwise, then follow that gut, because a lot of the times your gut is right. And I've learned to follow my gut quite a bit, and it has helped me immensely. So I want to talk a little bit about something that I still do, but I used to do as well. So when I got into this company, I was given 10% of it, okay? And I remember, especially at the start, when I would finish up work and I would be driving to the gym, I would often picture myself, or just imagine that I was driving a nice car, my dream car, an Audi S7, or Audi RS7. I absolutely love this car, and I would imagine or manifest myself driving in it. And no matter how hard things got, I still felt so good, because it felt I could feel what it would feel like to be in this car. And it still hasn't happened for me yet, but one day that is a possibility, and I know I'll get out of this. And I feel like manifestation is such a major contributor to feeling what those dreams feel like, and can help you achieve those dreams as long as you don't give up. And I think manifestation can be such a powerful avenue to get through hard times, because when you're going through the hardest times, there's really only up. I mean, there's still down, but you can still go up easier than you can go down, as long as you keep moving forward towards those goals. So never give up. This venture lasted for about 5 years, and all I really got out of it were some really solid relationships and some really valuable lessons. I would say out of everything that I've done in my life up until this point, minus the gym. The gym has taught me a lot of lessons, but I would definitely say that these were some of the hardest lessons I've ever learned. But they're lessons and mistakes that, these mistakes that I'll never make again, and that I've learned to grow off of. And when I do business personally, these are things that I look for, and look for what to do and what not to do. And that's something that I find incredibly valuable to myself. So if you're going through a tough time in business, in a startup, just look at the positive sides of it. You got to learn to know when to leave it be and move on. You got to learn how to trust your gut, and just overall try and be more positive towards the situation. This is going to help you a lot. Okay, so thank you everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Get ready for, what is it, part 4 coming up in the next video. This is kind of an interesting one, but I can't wait to share it with you.